Yo book nerds, it is October, Halloween's coming up, and I wanted to talk about horror slash thriller novels. I love scary movies, but I have not read very many scary books, and I really want to read some more. So I'm going to tell you what books I've read that kind of fall in this genre, and then tell you what I have on my TBR, and then I want your recommendations. Tell me what I should be reading. Right now I am reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I'm almost halfway and I'm really enjoying this. It is so good. So I'm going to talk about the books that I've read. I don't know if this is really horror and it's not super scary, but if you're looking for something to just kind of get your feet wet, kind of a little bit creepy for spooky season, I have read Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. Some of these are really dark and creepy, and they're really short, so you can just read a couple at a time. This was fun. I read this a few years ago. It's a good starting place. The only other classic horror that I've read, and it's probably more a thriller than a horror, would be The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This book is about Dorian Gray, who is this young, very handsome, beautiful man, and he gets his portrait done, and when he gets his portrait done, he wishes that the picture would age instead of him, and his wish comes true. And this all happens very early on, so I'm not spoiling anything. This is like the first chapter or two chapters. But this book is just so creepy because it asks some very deep questions, like what does sin do to your soul? And it is very dark and very creepy, and the ending, oh my gosh, the ending is just awesome. So if you haven't read this, you should. It is Oscar Wilde's only novel, and it is worth checking out. So now on to the more modern stuff that I've read, which honestly, again, isn't a lot, but I've read The Devil's Labyrinth by John Saul. I did a rant review on this. You can check it out. I'll link it in the description. This book kind of drove me nuts. It's about Ryan, who's going to a Catholic boarding school, and you can check out my other video if you want more on this one. Yeah, this one just drove me crazy. But it started off super spooky, and I had really high hopes for it. Full Tilt by Neal Shusterman. I read this when I was younger in junior high and high school. I read it a couple times. This book is probably considered a thriller, and it's about these kids that go to an amusement park, but this amusement park isn't like a regular amusement park. You have to ride 7 rides by dawn, otherwise you're trapped there. And I love this book. I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it. It's short, it's fast-paced, and I've flown through it every time I've read it. So good. And I've only read one horror, it's not even horror, it's more of a thriller series, and that would be the Hannibal Lecter series, which is Red Dragon, The Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and then Hannibal Rising. And I loved all of these books. They were so good. I flew through them. I have only seen the movies of Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal, but there's movies for all of them, I believe. I know Red Dragon's a movie. I guess I'm not positive if Hannibal Rising is a movie, but I think it is too. I definitely recommend this if you haven't read it. It's kind of an FBI thriller, serial killer series, and if you don't know who Hannibal Lecter is, I think it's pretty safe to tell you that Hannibal Lecter is a killer and he's a cannibal. So that's pretty common knowledge. Hannibal the Cannibal. And these just are so great. So read them. They would be great to read this time of year, I think. So I'm sure you're like, Jordan, horror, you need to read Stephen King. I have Stephen King books, but I've only ever read one, and it's not a horror. It's Different Seasons by Stephen King, and it's 4 novellas, and they're not scary. They might be considered a thriller, not really. So this doesn't really fall into what I'm talking about today, but that's the only Stephen King book I've read, sadly. That's on me, my bad. I have read a few other things that might be considered horror, but I don't have actual copies of them. Like I've read The Turn of the Screw, and I've read The Yellow Wallpaper, and I've read some Edgar Allan Poe. I've read Sleepy Hollow. I don't have any of those books actually in my possession. I don't have a lot of books on my TBR that are horror or thriller, but I'll talk about what I do have here. So first up is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I wanted to read this year, but I always had thought Dracula was kind of the first vampire story, but then I heard that there's a story called, I think it's called Camilla, not sure, that this story got a lot of ideas from. So I kind of wanted to do a little more research about it and maybe read that other story first before I tackled this one. So that's why I've kind of hesitated on this, because I don't know what that other story is about, because I'd never heard of it before, and now I'm really intrigued. The rest that I have on my TBR are Stephen King. I just haven't got to them. So one that I really, really want to read is It. But this book is gigantic. Like, I could break a window with this thing. It is huge, and it kind of intimidates me. I don't know when I will get to it. It kind of scares me already. And then I have The Shining and Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. I've never seen the movies, but I kind of know what's going to happen because it's been spoiled for me, unfortunately. But I still really want to read them. Hopefully I will get to them soon. So please, please tell me your horror thriller recommendations, because I really want to get more into this genre. I love scary movies, but I don't know why I haven't actually read many scary books. I've never been scared by a book, and I would love to. I would love to read a book that scares me. You know, maybe The Shining will, because I love Friends, and it scared the pants off of Joey so bad that he had to put it in his freezer. If you don't get that reference, why are you on my channel? Because Friends is the best show ever. Anyway, distracted. Please leave me your recommendations. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you enjoy what I'm doing here on my channel, please subscribe. And thanks for talking books with me.